Alright, so before we begin discussing about our topic, I would like you guys to clap your hands twice if you know what type of mushroom this is. Okay, now clap your hands 4 times if you know what type of mushroom this is. Maybe not a lot of you guys, but that is okay. So,
this is a mushroom called a psilocybin mushroom, and psilocybin is actually a psychedelic drug that can cause hallucinations. It's been kept off markets for decades, and for good reason, as it's highly addictive.
Many laws have been put in place to protect the general public from dangers of addictive drugs such as this.
But the drug might not be as bad as we thought. In fact, it could even be the cure for depression.
whoa, doesn't that sound cool and intriguing? You guys should tune in to learn more. So, what are magic mushrooms? Magic mushrooms are a natural form of a psychedelic drug that people consume for many purposes. Stated by admin, recent studies have shown how effective magic mushrooms are and therapeutic potential in treating anxiety and depression. By further studies, the FDA has approved that the key ingredient in magic mushrooms is psilocybin, and it is now actively used across the world with increasing evidence that can support the treatment for depression.
Although these studies do show that magic mushrooms can be beneficial, Addiction Center states that magic mushrooms can negatively affect people. While magic mushrooms can help people feel relaxed, they also include many possible side effects such as nausea, chills, numbness, hallucinations, and moderate to severe feelings of fear and anxiety. Hello everyone, I'm Kiana.
I'm Marlene.
I'm Cory.
And I'm Victoria, and today we're going to talk about some background information about these magic mushrooms, how and why magic mushrooms have shown to be beneficial for people's mental health, and how the magic mushrooms might have dangerous side effects and why they might not be good to consume.
So, when were magic mushrooms discovered? According to Freeman and Chandler, many people believe that magic mushrooms were used in ancient art. They were used by the ancient Mayas and Aztecs, and there were lots of different types of ancient art such as statues, rock paintings. These are some examples of the statues. So, since these are in a lot of ancient art, many people assume that magic mushrooms were very important in these ancient cultures. But this is just a theory. It isn't completely known when magic mushrooms started to be used.
The first concrete evidence that people were consuming magic mushrooms dates back to as early as the 1950s. This is where the history of mushrooms starts to get more detailed and more accurate because it's more recent. In the 1950s, Robert Watson, a mycologist, went to Mexico to study mushrooms. He then witnessed and participated in a ritual ceremony that included psilocybin mushrooms. He became very interested in these mushrooms, and later on, others did too. People started to experiment on psilocybin mushrooms, and they found both good and bad aspects about the drug. They noticed that when taken in small doses, the magic mushrooms could be used to help boost both mood and productivity. But when too much is taken, the consumer would experience unpleasant side effects.
In the 1970s, a ban on psilocybin was put in place, prohibiting medical research, which began a while after. In 2018, medical research was conducted to find out if these magic mushrooms could be used to treat depression.
In the early 1970s, President Nixon signed the Controlled Substances Act into law, which made most psychedelic drugs illegal. Although magic mushrooms can improve mood, they don't have any proven medical value.
Under the Controlled Substances Act, psilocybin is considered a Schedule I drug. Psilocybin is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, so this also makes magic mushrooms illegal.
And according to the National Drug Intelligence Center, a Schedule I drug is one that includes certain substances, has a high potential for abuse, and serves a no legitimate medical purpose.
And because of recent studies done on psilocybin mushrooms, more people are starting to trust these mushrooms a little more.
So, what makes magic mushrooms so special? Psilocybin mushrooms have actually been legalized because they have promising results that appear to prove they help people heal with anxiety and depression. Recent studies from one of the authors, Davis, says that 27 people found that a treatment featuring psilocybin works better than the antidepressant medications, quoting the effect was 4 times greater. Also, according to Sarah, these magic mushrooms can improve feelings of well-being, ability to express more, and social functioning. Her study says that they were comparing magic mushrooms to antidepressant medications. So it was a 6-week trial that involved 59 patients that had moderate to severe depression. Each group of patients received either psilocybin or escitalopram. From their observations, patients that received psilocybin showed a much more rapid improvement in their mental health to those that took the other drug. The ingredient in psilocybin that's found in magic mushrooms offer a faster acting improvement for depressed patients than traditional treatments of depression. Whether various studies show how this drug can be beneficial for mental health, there still must be further research to be done about this type of drug.
Thank you, Marlene. I'll take it from here, and I'll be talking about where you can find these mushrooms, what they're composed of, and the dangers of these mushrooms. Now, as you can see here, mushrooms generally grow in forests and meadows and in tropical and subtropical areas. Next slide. They grow in the northern hemisphere part of the world, and especially throughout Europe and the Pacific Northwest. It is important to understand the many parts of these mushrooms to understand how they function. As you can see here, the mycelial threads are located at the very bottom of the mushroom, and they act as a root and keep it firmly rooted in the ground. Directly above this is the vulva, which provides structure and support for the mushroom. And next is the stem, which, even though it's pretty obvious what the stem does, it's a very important part of the mushroom and keeps it standing tall and proud. On the stem, there is a ring, and it is a remnant of the membrane from when it was young and still growing. Now, above this is the most recognizable part of the mushroom. When people picture a mental image of a mushroom in their head, the first thing that pops into their mind is most likely the cap. The cover is topped with scales, and the underside is lined with gills. These gills have two main functions: to hold up the cap of the mushroom and to increase surface area for spores. There are some amounts of psilocybin in all parts of the mushroom. The cap has the most amount and is mainly located in the scales. If these mushrooms are consumed, they will cause side effects that may include vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, and more. The severity of these side effects depends on how many mushrooms one consumes over a period of time. For example, say someone consumes a smaller amount of mushroom over an extended period of time, these side effects will not be as prominent as someone who consumed a large amount of mushrooms over a smaller period of time. Another danger is these mushrooms can sometimes be poisonous and even lethal. According to Dr. Hartney from Very Well Mind, magic mushrooms are hallucinogenic drugs, which means they can cause you to hear, see, and feel things that are not real. When you're watching a movie and you see someone consume a mushroom or another type of hallucinogenic drug, sometimes the screen gets all rainbowy and their eyes dilate in and out. Although it is a theatrical portrayal of what goes on in the brain, it is still based on fact. Many people enjoy these hallucinations because they can help the person feel at peace, but it is important to remember the dangers of addictive drugs such as these.
When these mushrooms are consumed, the psilocybin is converted into psilocin. Psilocin then travels through the bloodstream. Now, psilocin has a very similar structure to serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter and an important hormone that stabilizes mood. Since psilocin looks so similar to serotonin, the psilocin goes to the serotonin receptors in the body, which stops the flow of serotonin to the nerves. This increases the effect of serotonin in the body. The psilocin also binds to the serotonin receptors, which causes more feelings of euphoria. Psilocin can also act in your brain, altering messaging pathways, and this is what causes unreal perceptions or hallucinations.
Stated by Elizabeth, nearly all danger comes from irresponsible usage of the drugs. There are two ways that a person can use a drug. If a person uses unprescribed drugs, the risk they take increases exponentially. Unprescribed drug usage is incredibly dangerous for a plethora of reasons. Unprescribed drugs aren't tailored for your specific body by a licensed health professional, and street dealers rarely have your best interest in mind.
In fact, drugs.com even reported that psilocybin mushrooms bought on the street are sometimes just other species of mushrooms laced with LSD. Prescribed drug usage is typically much safer as you're communicating with a licensed doctor. According to the FDA in a 2017 article, prescribed drugs must go through a rigorous testing process before they can be approved for public usage. Unprescribed usage of any drug can be devastating, not only to a community or a family, but to a nation. Unprescribed usage of psilocybin also poses a greater danger because, as stated before, sometimes the real mushrooms are hard to come by, and so instead they're mushrooms laced with LSD. Unprescribed usage is also nearly entirely used for recreational usage, which is more dangerous than using drugs for medical relief because boundaries aren't being set. While it is much safer, prescribed usage of any drug can still be dangerous. Dr. Mark Griffiths, an expert on addiction, wrote an article published in 2011 that stated anything could be addictive. There have been cases in which a patient becomes dependent on their prescription drugs, and this addiction is where many dangers appear.
Abuse of prescription drugs is a huge problem in the world, but very notably in America. Many laws have been put in place just because of how dangerous abuse of prescribed drugs can be. Abuse of any drug can lead to devastating side effects. In the case of psilocybin, taking more than a safe dosage could lead to some severe side effects.
Prescription abuse is a broad term, but a common and often defining way people abuse prescription drugs is by going to multiple doctors and pharmacies. There, they all give the person the recommended dosage. However, the person now has many times more the recommended dosage and can now abuse the substance.
Historically, drugs have become increasingly easy to access, and the National Institute of Drug Abuse credits this to the growing amounts of prescription drug abuse throughout the years.
However, prescription drugs that are not abused are much less dangerous, with minuscule amounts of deaths occurring each year. This is also assumed to be the case of psilocybin mushrooms, and similarly to the plight of marijuana legalization in the U.S., some states have already legalized the drug for medical purposes, including Oregon and Washington, D.C.
While addiction seems dangerous, prescription drugs are almost always safe unless they are abused. But what about abuse? Perhaps magic mushrooms are very addictive and thus pose a greater danger, even when they are prescribed. Drug Policy Alliance has stated that psilocybin mushrooms are not considered addictive and safe usage poses almost no danger to the user.
To put things in perspective, psilocybin mushrooms kill only one person per 100,000 people, which is very low compared to other stigmatized drugs.
DrugPolicy.org also states that psilocybin mushrooms have extremely low toxicity, and also says that the drug has been wrongly made out to be the cause of suicide or accidental deaths. Many believe, although it has not been tested, that psilocybin mushrooms would be a safe place to be a viable treatment method.
Magic mushrooms are dangerous, but surprisingly not as dangerous as many people believe. Responsible usage as well as guidance by medical professionals can lead people in need of mental health assistance to a new cure for depression. Further legalization and review of the Controlled Substances Act could bring relief to patients in need across the U.S. and possibly the world, but laws set into place that originated during the war on drugs have made it very difficult to fund research. Now, research is vital because, at worst, we could learn something about how the drug affects our brain, and at best, we could be developing a new and much more effective treatment method for anxiety and depression. Unfortunately, research has been nearly fatally stunted because, as a Schedule I drug, government and academic funds are not able to be used for research, which means that funding is solely reliant on nonprofit organizations. Research could pave the way to an understanding of a magic mushroom and what it does, and what chemical components inside the individual parts work to give it the effect it does. Donating to organizations like the Hefter Research Institute can help give us a more rounded understanding of the drug and help promote public health and safety around the drug.
Thank you for listening. I'm Cory.
I'm Victoria.
I'm Kiana.
And I'm Marlene.
And this was